This is Marketing Uncomplicated. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the show. I have Valerie, who is the CEO of North America for BADESOFA. We'll get into the meaning of it in a little bit. BADESOFA was founded with the goal of revolutionizing the bathing and the wellness experience. Originally in Germany and now globally, the product Bath Sofa is a direct translation of the brand name from German BADESOFA. Bathtubs have one thing in common. They are often too large or steep, and they are almost always too hard and uncomfortable. Completely agree, coming from somebody who takes a bath every night religiously. For Natalie Steger, even bathing in her own beautiful but oversized bathtub felt more like the acrobatics than relaxation. This discomfort was the catalyst for her to tackle the problem and develop the first comfortable bathtub cushion, which I have yet to try. And I am so curious because it is so uncomfortable to have your head there. So welcome, Valerie, to the show. Let's get into it. How's everything going?
Thanks for having me, Sasha. I'm really excited to talk about everything.
Yes, likewise. So let's get into it. I mean, it is a unique environment. It's the wellness environment. It's the wellness space. You know, the bathtub cushion isn't the first in the market. You know, I'd love to learn more about how this started, what was the aha moment, and then what was the development of the actual product that was the differentiation in comparison to the competitors that were already out there.
Sure. So the company started about 3 years ago in 2021 back in Germany.
Yeah.
And it's a true story of, well, I couldn't find one on the market, so I made one myself, where Natalie, who's one of the founders in the EU market, she was building a house and she was building a beautiful bathroom with one of those gorgeous freestanding bathtubs. And she wanted to use it, right? She wanted to use it every day to have a relaxing experience, and she just couldn't get comfortable. If you ever had one of those giant, beautiful bathtubs, you know that you sink in,
Totally.
You cannot actually rest your head, and it looks beautiful, but it's not really meant for relaxation.
Soaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she went out on the market and she tried pretty much anything that was available in Germany at the time. And she couldn't find one that was aesthetically pleasing, dried fast, and actually was relaxing. So that's how the product was truly born. Her and Annika tested a bunch of different things in the true fashion of German engineering with all kinds of layers, all different techniques. Annika is coming from the textile background, so there's a really deep knowledge of the fabric, different materials, how they work together, what provides optimal cushioning, but also drying and anti-mold resistant, all of those things. And that's how BADESOFA was born. I think it took them a good year of creating the product, and it's really, truly one of a kind. It's revolutionizing category of bath pillows in the EU. It has been growing exponentially in the past 3 years, reaching the point where the team was ready to go into other markets.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's how we started in the US. So I managed North America business, US and Canada, and we launched here last year and have been learning a lot.
I like that.
In the past 12 months.
Learning a lot. The key thing is, you know, with marketing and everything that we do in research and development is to really truly understand our audience. So let's dig into that a little bit, not to take away from the brand because we're going to dig into the offerings that you guys have, but let's talk about the differentiation of the success of BADESOFA in Europe and then transitioning into the United States, because as we were just talking about earlier, the differentiation of the different markets is also what's very interesting. So what are we uncovering in the US?
Well, so good news. I think that the most important thing that you want to understand is whether or not the product that worked really successfully in Europe and Germany and Europe in general, does it work in another market? Does it work in the US? Is the problem universal? does the solution resonate with people? And I think that's the most important thing that you want to focus in entering the market. Whether you're honestly launching product from scratch or bringing it from abroad, it's the same question. Is there product market fit? So the first few months, we were really focused on understanding this. It's not about unit economics. It's not about optimizing your revenue or profitability in the first few months. It's more about understanding, does the product work? What can we learn? How can it work better? Who is the consumer? What are they doing in their everyday life? Like, how do they differ from consumers in Germany? And the good news is that I think the product is pretty universal. I mean, I can speak for the US market and North America in general. It was received extremely well. But I think that as we expand globally, we're going to meet the same people with the same problem of uncomfortable bathtub and self-care just in general.
Yeah.
And I think that was the most important question that we had to answer. And the answer is yes. There is a product market fit. There is an opportunity to grow. It's a big market in the US. Wellness and self-care is a big topic of conversation for the US consumer. It has been in the past 10 years and growing, continue to grow, changing, but growing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from the business standpoint, from the market standpoint, the fit is 100% there and an opportunity is there. So then the next thing is, how do you approach it, right? Like, what are the elements that you take from the EU and what are the elements that you have to change? Like, what needs to be different? Mm-hmm. And that's what we've been trying to figure out in the past 12 months. And I think now we have a really good picture of what we need to do to really scale this business.
In the US per se, right?
In the US specifically, yes.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit then about penetrating the wellness industry. Obviously there was a product market fit, but everything that we are doing in today's day and age is a crowded space. I think no matter, what we come up with, whether it's a product or service, there is going to be competition. And competition is moving at an excruciatingly fast pace. So talk to us a little bit, because you are right. The whole wellness and holistic space is very big in this market. And I think it's also crowded in the sense of, really teaching the audience what's good and what's bad within the wellness space. And there's a lot of gray that's happening. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in terms of how you guys navigated through it.
Yeah, but we talk a lot about the competition and where we are now versus kind of anticipating what's coming for the US and just globally even. Yeah. From the competition standpoint, I think we're in a really unique position because if you look at the bath pillow category, let's talk about the US specifically, right? If you look at the bath pillow category, you're mostly talking about $20 to $30 Amazon products. Most of them are ugly.
Yeah,
this is
true. This is true.
They don't look particularly exciting, right, in your bath. They have usually a mold problem, whether through the suction cups or through the type of material that they're using. And if you ever used one, they're just not that comfortable.
Yeah.
So you're kind of competing against this set that's not necessarily a direct comparison to your product.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting situation. And this is where we are now, right? We'll talk about where we think we're going to be in the future. But right now, this is the situation. And on one hand, this is great news for us, right? Because you don't have a ton of direct competitors. On the other hand, you're kind of faced with the challenge of heavy lifting on education about the product, about the premiumness of the product, about the construction and the functionality of the product, all by yourself, versus when you have a highly competitive market. In supplements, for example, you can do more about your brand specifically versus about the category. But for us, it's more about helping people to understand the value and what it is and why do they need it. And that's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, because you guys are kind of like there is ones that are out there, but they aren't as good as what you guys have created. So it's then re-educating the audience to what they were already educated about to kind of shift their mindset. So it's like you're doing the cleanup in essence of like who came before you.
Yes, there is a little bit of that. And it's really interesting if you look at the kind of how I think about competition currently. I'm not necessarily trying to steal a share from existing bath pillow category, right? Because it's hard to compare. Like our price point is $250 versus they under 50.
Mm-hmm.
And just the quality of the product is just a big gap. But I think what I am competing against is other wellness tools, other home spa equipment and things like that, and um, even spas to some extent. So it's more about the share of wallet than it is about the direct category competition.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense because it's at a much higher price point. I mean, we could think about, I think some of the first ones that came out, what like QVC, right? They probably were sold on QVC, and like not nothing against QVC. There's a lot of people that became super successful in terms of selling their products on QVC,
Mhm.
but it's the standpoint of like you are that elevated kind of product, and it's like why should somebody buy that over whatever the other ones cost? I think they're like upwards of like $29, and like the Bed Bath and Beyond ones, so on and so forth, right? To your point, that probably don't last more than a couple of months, right? And so go ahead. Yeah.
No, it definitely does not. It's like it's such a different spaces that we're playing that we don't even directly compete. And even if you look where I'm sourcing volume, it's not necessarily from them. It's from bringing new consumers to the category. And
Yep.
this is a really interesting conversation, even educating people about the benefits of the bath and how it relaxes your nervous system and what it does to your overall well-being. Like even 15 minutes in a bathtub 3 to 4 times a week, which I know sounds like a lot, but for
Yeah.
15 minutes, just get in a bathtub, close your eyes, create this space. And this is such a serene environment that has lasting effect on the rest of your day and the rest of your life. And I think that's part of the education that the brand has to carry with it, because it really helps people to like sink in and really relax.
Sure, sure. I love that we are bringing this up because it's perfect because it all rolls into like brand identity, brand content, brand communication, like your values as a company, like what you are offering. And it's like you're not just offering the pillow that goes into the bathtub, but you're also educating in the surrounding of what a bath can do for you if taken on a daily basis, right? And so it is this kind of full spectrum, and then the accompaniment of what goes along with the bath that I think is that becomes part of like this whole ritual for somebody. So, very interesting kind of piece there as it relates to like marketing and brand communication for sure.
Yeah, it's a complicated story to tell. But it's a really, really interesting one. And I think that when you asked me before about the competition and kind of how we see ourselves in the future, I think that right now, in direct competitors in the category, there is none. But I'm fully aware that as soon as we grow, and maybe already there are some competitors that's gearing up, and probably people are going to start copying first on Amazon, and then who knows, even D2C and retail. Our product is going to be attempted, at least
Yeah,
copied,
sure.
probably not to the same degree because it is really hard to replicate. But I'm aware that there's going to be competitors, and I think that being that leader in from the brand standpoint and the storytelling, that's when it becomes really, really important, because you can have other brands or other products that have similar maybe offering, but what you represent as a brand, as a team, from your values, I think that's what's truly, truly unique.
Yes, I completely agree. What do you think has been the biggest barrier to entry into the US market?
Cost.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's um,
Do you think it's because in the time that we are in now, let's say, because people's spending habits and purchasing power like has everything to do with also what's happening, right? In the rest of the world. Maybe people are holding on to their money, the insecurity of like what's going to happen with the US government, who's going to be reelected. Like there are things that are nice to have versus necessities. And I think like obviously this is a necessity. Some people may not consider it a necessity. Sorry, some people may consider it a necessity versus a nice to have. So I think, it's interesting. I mean, have you guys been struggling with the price point like since the beginning, or is it always something that has always come up where it's like the product is amazing, but I don't know, I haven't developed an affinity towards wanting to spend this much. So I think it's the education of like why, right?
Yeah, it's a really good question. What's interesting is that I think that in the times of uncertainty, both economically, politically, socially, where the US is right now, self-care as a category and a certain subsectors of the category actually tend to do better because a lot of the people reserve for that, okay, self-wellness and caring for themselves because
Yeah.
that's like kind of their way of managing the situation that they cannot affect a lot of the things that's going on globally and in the country right now, but they can affect their own wellness and how they care for themselves. So we actually saw it didn't affect us a lot yet. There is a lot of tactical questions, of course, going into the election with the spend in November and October and how that's going to affect cost per million on Meta and things like that. That kind of remains to be seen. But in general, as a category, I think we're pretty resilient.
Mm-hmm.
And another interesting aspect of BADESOFA specifically is that a lot of it is bought as gifting,
Mm-hmm.
and premium gifts tend to continue to do well even in a recession.
I agree.
Because even if you might scale back on certain things for yourself, you're going to still continue to uplift and make others happy, and especially if it's somebody who's dear to your heart and, a loved family member, you would still continue to spend on gifting.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You do bring up a good point in terms of gifting that there is, I mean, statistically, even last year, people were spending so much around the holidays. And there are people that, whether it's like I could see this being gifted at like a bridal shower or, at a um uh not a bridal shower, then you have like when somebody's having a child, I forget what
Baby
that's
shower.
called, a baby shower.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All kinds of showers.
All kinds of showers. This is like the perfect gift, right? So anybody listening, if you have those things coming up, go ahead and buy one. But yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
can see like the gifting aspect of the mentality of doing that is really, it's interesting how we spoil from a social social like psychology. It's interesting how we spend more on others versus before we spend on ourselves. So that's a pretty interesting data point that you bring up there as well.
It actually is supported by a lot of data just in general in the category, in the consumer category. If you look at the average AOV in key gifting occasions, which like let's say holidays, Q4 and Mother's Day, because these are the big ones for us. And the AOV tends to be at least 10 to 15% higher, which I think like just telling you that there is something in the gifting and caring
Yes.
for others.
Yeah, totally. So just shifting a little bit in terms of, penetration into market and different ways of getting your product out, right? There's the individual purchasing. There is the gifting for others, which is still part of the individual purchasing. But have you guys thought about, getting this into department stores like a Bloomingdale's, like a Neiman Marcus, and like let's talk a little bit about that if that's something that you guys are venturing into, and what does that look like from the standpoint of where does somebody even start to even think about that?
Yeah, so we're not looking into this actively for a couple of reasons. I think that we're very young in the US. It's only been a year, right? It's going to be our second kind of Super Bowl season in Q4.
Yeah.
So I think there is still a big opportunity to continue to learn and also focus on the core channel, which is D2C. So I think that, while we are thinking about as a team and kind of how we're going to approach and where we're going to grow in the future, I think there is a big value about focusing on where you are and how much scale you can still gain from the D2C channel. So that's my number one priority, continue to gain traction and scale in D2C, because that also feeds the information back to me and I can learn more about the customer, which in turn makes me just so much better as a business when I get to know my customer a lot better.
Yeah.
But I think that eventually we're probably going to go into department partnerships, different retailers. There's a lot in the works. A tricky part for this type of product is which aisle does it go? Like,
Yeah.
where does it belong, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to the education about the category, which is also a little bit better done through the D2C channels.
And what aisles have you guys explored since we peeked in
It's
on that?
We looked at the it's usually a home bedding aisle
Okay.
because it's a pillow or
Yeah.
bath.
Yeah.
And neither quite fit exactly right, because if you think about from the mindset of the consumer, right, who's going through the aisles when you in a bedding, you're shopping for bedroom, right? Like the pillows that you need are for your bed to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're in a bath, you're not necessarily shopping for self-care and like a spa. You're probably buying a shower curtain
Yeah.
or a
It's true.
toilet seat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
And just the way the things merchandised, also the pillow is very sizable. I think that's one of the advantage of it, because it's so comfortable because it's so big.
Yeah.
But also because it's so big, it's a little bit hard to merchandise it and show it in stores, because you need a fairly sizable spot.
Sure. Yeah. So in building the company and building BADESOFA and getting it to market, what were the biggest hurdles? Like, obviously, like, there's the research and development, the testing of everything that's in market. How do we choose the material? How do we do this? I mean, were there any points in time where it's like, okay, this isn't going to work? Because, we always celebrate our successes, but I think that there's a lot to gain value from mistakes that happen. Like, oh, we did this, it didn't work, we should have, done X. Were there any kind of stories that you can share with the audience in terms of, a hurdle that kind of almost ended everything, or maybe there wasn't any, or maybe it was just personal, like, oh, that was close, we should have thought about that, or I don't know.
Well, I think that in every business there's so many.
So many.
Sometimes in the moment you realize how close it is, and sometimes a month later you're like, wow, that was actually really close, but we made it.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I think that from before the US market, there were definitely, challenges. The product actually went through re-engineering in the beginning. So there was a version 1, then it was absorbing a little bit too much water. So it needed to be re-engineered, which means scrapping the existing inventory, creating the product from scratch, replacing some of the orders that already were shipped, and making customers happy. So that was a big step. And I think that that required a lot of resilience from the team, acting fast and just kind of taking a leap. The new version of the product is just significantly better, if not perfect, but of course I'm biased.
I'm sure it's perfect.
And I think even in the US in the last 12 months, we have so many ups and downs. Like, there are so many successes to celebrate because the product is truly amazing, and I think it performed really well in the key events when we needed it to perform.
Yeah.
But like last year, for example, in Q4, we came short of our revenue target because we didn't have inventory.
Oh, I see. So you had more demand, which is great. It's a great problem to have.
So that's what everybody is saying, like, oh, it's a great problem to have. Not but unless you eat it.
You want to solve for the problem.
Right, because we at the time we were shipping all of the product from the EU, so it was fully manufactured in Europe.
Yeah.
Not in Germany, actually. It was manufactured in Poland.
Okay.
But all of the materials came from other parts of the EU.
Yeah.
And again, first time in the US market, shipping from Poland. We were estimated that we were given an estimate of 4 weeks delivery time.
Yeah.
And it took 10.
Yeah.
Which means that your high season we started taking pre-orders, assuming that the vessel is about to arrive, like everything is about to be able to ship, and it just keep getting pushed back and back and back because there's multiple transportation arms, and
Yeah.
it was a very challenging time because the demand was there, which is great,
Yeah.
but also you have to fulfill that demand on time, and you want to make the customers happy because you also need to be sensitive of the fact that probably some people buying it as a present, and holiday come at a particular time every year, so you can't really miss that delivery date.
Yeah.
So that was a big learning and a very tough time for everybody on the team. But this year we're gearing up for it and planning in advance.
Yeah, that's great. I love that because I think a lot of people who develop and design things internationally can forget about the whole shipping aspect. And I think also like post COVID, a lot of like shipping has been delayed so much more than like it used to be. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
the guarantee, the not guarantee. It's like somebody will tell you 4 weeks and then it will turn into 6 weeks. And it's just like, it's very stressful to have to deal with these type of things that can happen within the whole kind of purchasing flow, right?
Yeah, and then there's things like that you can't really anticipate, like the product gets pulled back at customs for inspection. Happens to like 1 out of 100 products, and ours had to be that, like this container. And there's nothing you can do because you cannot really speed up this process, and you just have to patiently wait and manage situation on your end with the customers to the best of your ability.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of variables sometimes when there comes to like having things manufactured overseas. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, because I know that the pillow sofa obviously was the initial kind of, in market product. And I know that you guys have developed other products. So let's dive into at what point in time did you guys build into that other product? And when was the decision to say, okay, now we want to go in another direction to have another product into the market? And, how was that kind of formulated?
Yeah, I think we always think about the company, globally as a home spa category, right? And home spa, yes, bath pillows were the flagship product, and it continues to be the majority of our volume. In the US specifically, at least, it's going to continue even for the next year. I forecast that it's going to be the biggest volume driver. But as you think about building the brand, building the business, and scaling it, you need to think about how to grow your portfolio. And it's always tricky question, right? Like, what is the right time? You ask me about expanding to other channels. Like, I don't think that today is the right time for us to expand into other channels necessarily, but I do think that today is the right time for us to grow the portfolio. Just from the business fundamentals, it grows your AOV, it allows you to optimize for lifetime value of the customer, but also just expanding your customer base and getting more eyeballs. Like, even there's different cross sell between different categories. So I think to me that's a no-brainer.
And one person like Jane Doe may like this one product versus the other product, and so you're able to reach more people in terms of their likings and what they would be looking for.
Yes, exactly that. And even we see right now from pool sofa ads, people still convert on the core product, on the bath pillow. So like, even though we send them an ad for a pool product, but they ended up purchasing a bath product. So I think there is a tremendous value in having a breadth of portfolio. But the question is, what is the right time and how much emphasis you're putting on each of them? And the way I look at it is kind of a test and learn. So in the past 12 months, I have conviction proof that bath pillow category is 100% yes. It's working. It's going to continue to scale. This is going to be a core of our business. Now, when you think about other areas of your home, like spa-like areas of your home, pool is another one that a natural extension of like in-water relaxation. Like, we have a lot of research shows that being next to the water brings you that calmness, makes you feel more peaceful and elevates overall well-being. So like, water is kind of a natural extension. And the pool product has been in the works for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Also fully designed in Germany with the same principle of aesthetics, comfort, and fast drying and kind of easy maintenance of the pillow. And we tested it first in the EU market in the beginning of the year. It performed extremely well, even for Germany, where less than 1% of the people have pools.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's when the decision of, okay, let's test it in the US was made. It took a while for us to manufacture the product specifically for the quality that we wanted. We went through a few challenges of changes and in the manufacturing process and the sourcing process. So we finally launched the product last month.
Okay.
So the pool sofa is very new,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still kind of learning from our customers. So far, feedback was extremely positive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for next year, we're going to scale it a lot more, but it's still a very much of a learning process.
Very cool. Well, congratulations on launching it. I'm sure it took a lot to get there. So it's funny how you were saying how it went extremely well in Germany, knowing that there's only 1% of people who have pools because it's so cold there 90% of the year. I wouldn't say 90. I exaggerate, but even their summers are our spring here in terms of like the temperature. So that's really great to see that it flew off the handle. And I think aesthetically, your designs are also quite it has that European flair, right? The minimalistic kind of style as well. That's very cognizant of that area as well. So
Yeah, I think that goes back to kind of brand and marketing and thinking about taking something from the EU and bringing it to the US. And I think that a lot of the things and how we communicate and how we structure the business and marketing specifically is very different in the US.
mm-hmm.
But one thing that we have in common and that I'm really conscious of maintaining this is that aesthetic and like what the brand feels like, what the brand looks like. It's kind of the Scandinavian aesthetic is really important to us.
Yeah, which is very coveted here in the US, especially as it relates to like the Scandinavian, like Danish furniture that has made its way over into the US.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that you guys hit the nail on the head with the design and the aesthetics of bringing that over. So I mean, just to take a step back, I mean, as you were saying, everything plays a role, right? I mean, and it's not just I have an amazing idea, there's a product gap in the market for me to fulfill, but it's like, what is that? How am I going to attract people to that product? It's the branding and the communication that you guys have around the whole bathtub and wellness, and then the design of it. So there's a multitude spectrum of things to be thinking about, and not just I have an idea, there's a gap in the market and I need to fill it type thing.
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe that execution is like 85% of success.
Yes.
If on some days I would say 95.
Yeah.
But I think that execution is just extremely, extremely important. And that's what distinguishes you versus somebody else. Because, a lot of people have great ideas, but it comes down to how you bring it to market and how you execute.
For sure. I mean, you can have a great idea. People could say, wow, this is fantastic. But I think it's also in the way that you tell the story, right? And how you resonate with the customer at the end and to really kind of to resonate with what is missing in their life.
Yes, I think this is why, even when I'm thinking how important marketing is, and it's reflected in how my team is structured right now, and how I'm thinking about structuring my team even for like the next 12 months and beyond, majority of it is marketing.
Yeah,
because it's just so important. And we're thinking about marketing as like the core of marketing is really like, let's learn as much as possible. Like, let's understand our consumer. Let's make sure that we're really delivering a core value for them and know what they want, and we're able to deliver. And if we're not able to deliver it, let's pivot and figure out how we can do it.
Yeah. How do we re-communicate? How we re-educate? How do we reposition in the market, and so on and so forth?
Sometimes it even means changing the product, and that's okay. I think that's all part of marketing, and that's why I think it's a core of any business, truly.
It's what you said. It's being able to shift as the tides go and like really being able to focus. You've mentioned multiple times, Valerie, over our conversation, just based on how it's so important to listen to your audience and to the market, which I think a lot of businesses don't do enough of. I don't want to say fail to do. I think they just don't do enough of, right? Because they think and they're so consumed in our product is amazing. Why wouldn't everybody like it? Well, you got to understand why everybody is not kind of moving in that wave.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you don't know why your velocity is where
Yeah,
it is, right? Or like why your returns are where they are, like how can you scale the business and how can you build it for the future? I think it's really important.
totally, totally. Valerie, this has been super insightful. Can you let us know where we can purchase the goods?
Badesofa.com. We are direct to consumer. Pool Sofa is available as of last week, and actually, right now, we just opened up really fast and free shipping for Pool Sofa. Please check out the products and reach out if you have any questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your time. This was really great.
Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you.